And I think we are finally live again. What is up, everybody? It has been a hot minute since I have been back on the podcast, and just lots of things going on, and lots of good things, I should say, going on. Took a trip with my church to the Dominican Republic and did some church planning, some stuff with them, and obviously now we're back into 2021 already. COVID seems to be going away, or at least decreasing in number, which we like, and which means that everybody can start getting back to normal here, hopefully, in 2021. And so with that, I am extremely excited. But also probably caught your attention with the title that is today's podcast, and I really wanted to do this podcast because it's been something that has been an ongoing situation, and I would also say conversation, not only with me and my clients, but with some of the students that I coach, and then also just I see it happening with team members and things like that on my team, and having conversations with them. And so I felt like this is something that needs to get addressed, or at least talked about, because one thing that you'll probably don't know is a lot of times when you're in something, it doesn't matter whatever that is, whether you're in the medical field, or you're in the real estate industry, or you're in the mortgage side of things, or whatever the case may be. I think sometimes we forget about exactly what it is that we do, and the stuff that we may know may not always be something that the public knows, or something that people are aware of. And I think sometimes, especially this topic, I think we assume that people know what's going on, and then we get into those situations, and then we find out that they don't know what is currently happening and going on. So with that being said, I want to preface this with the fact that I'm not calling out parents and just parents, but what I'm doing is calling out people that tend to think that they know what is happening, or what to do in a current situation, when they're not the professional in that situation. So I know that may be rough to hear. I am guilty of this as well when it comes to other things, and so I'm trying to learn to let the professional do their thing, and they're getting paid to do that because that is their profession and that's what they're doing. So without further ado, I want to get into this and just give you a little background story of how this all came about, and the topic that I chose and why I'm doing it. But here's the current situation. The current situation is this. If you do not know, all over the country right now, so it's not just here in Omaha, Nebraska, but it is everywhere. There is a shortage of houses, and a low inventory is what you may hear before, or hear some people say. You may also hear people say that it's a seller's market, which means that the sellers have the leverage in negotiating, because what that means is there's more demand from buyers than there are actually supply, which is the house that is on the market. So typically you're getting into multiple offer situations. The sellers have all the leverage, and if the buyers want the house, they're basically going to have to give up quite a bit of things, if not everything, to get into that house. And so that's what's kind of built this conversation to kind of move forward. So what I want to do is kind of start breaking some of these things down. So as I just said, we are currently in a seller's market, or a low inventory market. And what that means, just to give you some perspective, is in Omaha, Nebraska, I can't speak for every city because every city is different. There's more houses, but and there's more people and all that type of stuff. But here in Omaha, to get back to what we would say a normal market, right, would be that typically we would want to see somewhere between 6, 7, 8,000 houses on the market, to be fair. You get that amount of properties that are for sale on the market. They're going to sit longer. They're going to probably be on the market for 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 months. And they're going to sit there, and buyers are going to be more picky and choosy as they decide to go get their house. That would be a normal market. just to put into perspective, we are sitting right now less than 500 houses on the market. And so when you look at it that way, you start thinking to yourself, how is that even possible? Well, it's possible because that's the reality, and that's how many are actually for sale. And so what has happened is, because of the interest rates and because of buying power and the fact that people are wanting to get into homes, and you're starting to see a lot of younger people getting into homes, like in their early 20s, mid 20s. That just hasn't been the case in years past. Okay, so that's one thing that's trending, that's happening. That the amount of those types of age groups in years past wasn't as high as it is now. Now, what's also a factor with this is rent has never been as high as it is now and continues to go up. And so you have this, I would say, war going on, if you will, where you get a lot of people that are saying, well, if I'm paying $1,800, $1,900, $2,200 a month in rent, why don't I just go buy a house? Because my mortgage will potentially be less than that. Here's the problem. You get a lot of people that start wanting to do that, which puts more people in the market of wanting to buy a house. And then with the shortage, it puts you in a very difficult situation to buy. And so we see that happening. We see a lot of first-time home buyers happening. There's a lot of great new jobs specifically coming to Omaha, so that brings in new people as well. And so you get this demand from a lot of these people trying to find a home, but not having enough houses on the market. And so it creates this situation, typically, that isn't very fun to be in when you're going to buy, unless the right expectation has been set. And that's where I think we as realtors, and I think other people, have failed to educate their clientele and their people about what to expect as they get involved in this market. And so let me try to break this down for everyone, including the parents of these kids. I call them kids. I don't know why. They're young adults. But to me, I feel like I'm getting older, and I was in youth ministry prior to getting into real estate. And so, like, whenever I'm working with somebody younger, I'm like, they're my kids, they're my family. Like, that's, but maybe that's not the right wordage to use there. But as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, how do I try to communicate this well enough so that everyone understands that things may be drastically different than it was when our parents bought. So I'm going to back up, and I'm going to say, in a lot of cases, a lot of our parents maybe bought a house when maybe that was 15, 20 years ago. Okay, 15, 20 years ago, the market was completely different. The city that you live in was probably completely different. There was probably things, if you think about, that were built or not built 15, 20 years ago, right? Like, even in Omaha, I can date back and I can look and see, like, oh wow, West Omaha was here 15, 20 years ago, and now it's progressed way out here. And so you start to see that change, right? Well, with change comes a lot of other things. There becomes a demand for maybe a specific area because it's more of a popular place to be, or coveted area or neighborhood or school district to be in. So, like, as those things happen, things change, prices change, taxes change, things like that like you may not have, or your parents may not have been paying high percentages in when they first bought. But now, as we fast forward to 15, 20 years, even 10 years, a lot of those things have changed and increased. And with that also has come the fact that buying a house is completely different than when our parents bought a house. In fact, I will say that I have now purchased, three houses in the past 7 years, and it's all been different. And looking back, I can look and say, man, that first house that we bought for $160,000, I think. So this is 7-8 years ago. We bought for $160,000. That house could probably sell now for 240, 245. You know, thinking about the next house that we got into, you know, I think that was again 135,000 that we flipped and put some equity into it. We sold it for like 170, 175, I think. That house now could probably sell for like 230, 245, somewhere in there with the updates that we put in. You know, and that was, gosh, maybe 4 years ago. And then I look at the house that we built 3 years ago. So we've been in that house 3 years now, this past February. And I look and see what we paid for that house and what we could sell it for. And we could probably sell it for $50, $60, maybe even $70,000 more than what we paid for it. So what's my point in all this? Well, there's a lot of things that I'm going to get to, but my point is that things change and prices are drastically changing more rapidly than we have ever seen before. Okay, so one of the first things I want to address is that sometimes I'll go to show a house and the people that I'm with and, you know, sadly, parents, I'm calling you out again, will say somewhere along the lines of, I don't think this house is worth that much. They paid this amount, you know, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago for this house, and now they're asking this. Well, they can ask that because that's what the market is telling us that it's worth. So just like I said in my previous examples of the houses that we've purchased and what we could have sold them for now, that's called appreciation. Those things, when you buy a house, that's the joy and benefit of owning something like a house, is because it's unlike a car, it appreciates, right? You go buy a car and that thing's going to depreciate the moment you drive it off the lot. In today's world, today, if you buy a house, like, you are already buying it with equity into it, because with the way things have been trending and going, that house is increasing in price anywhere from 3 to 7, sometimes 10% in certain areas in a year. So like, you're seeing the fact that you don't have to do anything except eat, sleep, breathe in your house for a year, and it's appreciating in price, which is pretty awesome, right? Like, in this market and in this industry right now. And so that's something that's cool, because if you're renting, obviously you're not getting any equity back, right? You're paying somebody else and you're not putting anything in equity for yourself. So that's one reason to get out of renting and get into buying. But you're also understanding the fact that, like, it may seem like you're overpaying for a house because of the current situation, but you're not actually doing that. You're actually putting equity. I'll give you another example. My sister-in-law bought a house in Florida, and she was up against multiple offers in these situations, and so she called me and talked to me and said, hey, if I'm going to get this house, I'm going to have to waive the appraisal, and I'm up against 2 cash offers, and that means I'm going to have to pay the difference if it comes back below. Is that correct? And I said, yeah. And the question that we posed to her was, well, how bad do you want the house? Do you want to be in a house or do you want to rent? And she's like, well, I want to be in a house. Well, then the answer is write it up and put no contingencies and see what happens. That was the situation that she had to be in. But I also had to tell her, I said, hey, just so you know, even if that appraisal comes back below and you have to pay a difference or whatever that may be, you're going to make that back in the next 1 to 2, 3 years in equity anyway. So yes, it may seem that it stinks that you're going to bring some extra money to the table when you go to close, but that extra money is already being wrapped right back into your equity, into your house. And so 3, 4, 5 years later down the road when you go to sell, you're obviously going to make a lot more money as well than what you paid for it 3, 4, 5 years ago, correct? Like, we're all seeing that. That's a logical sense. It's what's happening. Now, again, I can't predict the future or any of those things. So I want to make myself clear that, like, obviously if there was a crash or something like that took place, then, you know, you're obviously maybe in a potential situation where you're not going to make that much money back. But I can tell you that even when you look back at 2008, 2009, again, it came back to certain areas, right? Certain states, certain cities, certain things like that had a much bigger impact of the market crashing than other places. And so you want to basically take that into consideration too when you are buying, to see, okay, what is it that I'm actually buying? Where am I buying? And if something were to happen, like a market crash or something like that, which I don't think is going to happen, but don't quote me on that. That's just my opinion. I would say that like in that situation, you weigh those options, right? And that's why you want a trusted real estate agent to walk you through this process. I will speak on something else that has come up a lot in these conversations too. This happens to be along the lines of maybe somebody that thinks that, hey, I don't need an agent in this market, especially if I'm thinking about selling my home. And I would tell you that you are wrong, right? If you have anyone telling you that you think that you can sell your house by yourself in this market, in a seller's market, you're going to get what you want, all this other stuff, you're wrong. Now, I will say, can someone do that? Absolutely. Anyone can sell your house, right? But if you don't understand the value of having a real estate agent represent you on the buy side or on the sell side in any situation, then I would highly recommend you looking into it and at least sitting down with one and having a conversation. Because here's what's happening with the for sale by owner, okay? What the truth is, the reality is, when you look at numbers, they are selling their house and getting less than what they actually could have got by using a real estate agent. And most people are sitting there and they're thinking to themselves, well, I don't want to pay the commission. Okay, well, what if I told you that we could net you $20,000 to $30,000 more for your house? And that's what the current situation is that's happening within our market when you're priced right. And then they kind of look at you a little bit differently and they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, now that commission doesn't look so big, does it? Because now I'm netting you more money. Those are the things that you need to think about, and the benefit of using an agent who's going to know how to market and advertise your property a lot better than you are, and who's also going to manage the showings and the follow-up and the feedback a lot better than you are as well. Listen, the benefit of having a real estate agent isn't to write up a contract. That's easy. Anyone can do that. Anyone can hire an attorney to do that. That's the easy part. I'm going to tell you that the hard part is the process, okay? The reality is, and the truth is, it's the process as you go out throughout that transaction. There's many things that come up. Many things that come up with the lending side of things, the mortgage side of things, the other party that's involved, and those types of things. And you want somebody in your corner to basically be fighting for you and representing you and not somebody else. Same thing with building a house, right? We hear that all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody say, oh, we don't need the real estate agent. We don't need them to represent us as we go build. We're working directly with the builder. And then how many times I get a phone call that's like, hey, this is going on with our builder. We need your help. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't speak into that. Legally, I'm not going to be held liable for speaking into that or trying to help you through that because I can't. I could lose my license, or I could get fined, or whatever the case is, because you chose that you thought just because the builder can write up the contract for you or an attorney can write up that contract that you don't need us. But now you're seeing the benefit of why you need someone as you're going through that transition. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've got as it's dealt with that and for sale by owners. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, I have to tell them the same thing. I wish you would have used me, because this is why now you're seeing the benefit of wanting someone to represent you throughout that transaction, because now I have to watch you suffer and go through these things when it could have been easily avoided. Especially, this is what doesn't make sense to me, especially when you're thinking about building a house. You're building one of the biggest assets that you possibly are going to own, and you're not having representation through that. That's crazy to me, because one, you're not paying that commission. The builder may tell you that, hey, we're going to cut out this agent and you can work directly with us. One, that's a red flag, okay, if a builder ever tells you that. But two, you're not paying the commission off of that. The builder is. And I'll tell you what, after working with the builder and knowing how new construction works, whether they tell you this or not, they build the commission into the base price and into the pricing of the home for you. So guess what? You're paying the commission no matter what anyway. Now, that may be a shocker to some of you, and some of you may say, no, my builder didn't do that, or my builder took a discount off, or whatever. Yeah, they took a discount off because they're already pocketing that money that they already planned to pay an agent for, that now they don't have to pay an agent for, so that they can give you a discount off of the extra money that was going to go in their pocket that they were planning to pay you for anyway and charge you for anyway. I don't know if you can follow with me on that, but that's something to think about and to know that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And know that when people set their prices on things, they're already building those costs into them. So they're not saving you any money, okay? You need to understand that. You want to be represented as you're going through that transaction. So as things come up, because they will, trust me, in a new build, things will come up. And there will be things that you'll be happy to have a real estate agent on your side with. I'm going to give you an example. I'm dealing with one right now. We signed a contract last July, okay? Last July. It is February 26th right now. Last July, I signed a contract with a builder, with one of my clients, to build a house, and they told her that it would be done in April. Okay, we've been following up with them. We've been reaching out with them. Haven't been able to get a hold of them for quite some time until finally, like this past week, which now we know why they were dragging their feet and not getting back to us, was all that we have accomplished is a hole in the ground with a foundation. And it's February 26th. So the bad news throughout this transition and transaction right now is the fact that she's now not moving into a house in April because all they have is the foundation. And yes, COVID had something to do with it. Weather has something to do with it. Yes, but not 3 or 4 months being pushed out. Okay. So as she's been frustrated through this process, she's had someone to lean on to help her walk through this process with her. And so now we've been able to tag team it, and we've been able to continue to reach out to the builder's agent and the builder and discuss, okay, what our timelines look like right now? When can we expect framing to start taking place? And now she has someone in her corner to fight for her, okay, and to help push this process along. If you're by yourself, good luck, because you're just another number. But if you have someone else that's fighting for you to help you get through that process and then also educate you through that situation, it helps to ease your mind a little bit and put you at peace. Is she upset that she can't get in April? Yes. But are there some things that I've been able to educate her on as far as this process dragging out? Absolutely. One example I told her was, here's what's great about this. I know you want to take it to him and you want to be upset and whatever, but we can't change that, right? Like we have to just continue to stay the course and push them to get these things done in a faster, proper manner, which we will do. But here's the thing. I reminded her that, like, yeah, I know it's inconvenient for you, but as time progresses and goes on, they're eating costs right now. They're losing money basically sitting on this house and not getting it up. And what I mean by that is they're paying the taxes on it still until it closes. And they also know that if they would have built this sooner, they could have moved on to some of the other projects that they were doing, and they could get more money off of those builds because of appreciation, right? So I told her, I'm like, be grateful you got locked in back in July for the price that you're paying, because now somebody else that's coming to them right now, they're probably paying $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 more than what you're paying for your house. And so when you break it out that way, I said, that's gonna be instant equity, like into your home when you move into your house. So if that is this next July and it's a year out, or it's a little bit longer than that, you're gonna have a boatload of equity that's gonna be into that house because of the appreciation that's been taking place. And so it's just walking people through that and giving them education and information as you go through it, and also helping you get through those trials. This is where we get paid as real estate agents, right? Like, this is where we provide the value to our clients. It's not to write a contract. That's easy, okay? That's the reality and the truth. Like, anyone can write a contract. It's what comes with the whole process, right? It's what comes with providing resources, trustworthy resources to you as you go through that process. Okay, that's what we're here for. That's why you hire us. That's why you pay more, in situations when you look at, well, why do you go pay more for services and different things? Because you want the best service, right? Like, you can go pay less or you can pay mediocre, but you're not going to get the best job, right? If you're paying more, you're gonna get the best. And that's the way I try to explain it to a lot of people is, listen, yes, I get that you don't want to list your house for 6%, but this is the value that we bring to the table. Is there someone over there that'll do it for 3.5 or 4? Maybe. But are they going to give you the type of value and experience that you deserve and that you need throughout this process? Probably not. That's why they're doing it that's why they only do 5-10 transactions a year. That's why we do over 100 and some transactions a year. Like, there's a difference there, right? A value proposition that you need to be aware of. And so again, understand who you're using as you go through this process, okay? And that's why I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast, because it's something that's been continued to bring up over and over and over again. And other examples, for example, of like going out into this market, like, here's the reality. In every price range, we're seeing multiple offers take place, okay? What that means is you're not gonna go get a house by offering less than the listing price. Let me say that again. If you are someone that thinks you're gonna be out there and you're gonna get less than what the listing price is, there's a very high percentage and chance that you are not even gonna be looked at when your offer is presented, okay? The reason for that is I've explained to people that the market right now is like an auction. Here's your starting price. How high are you willing to go? Because that's the reality. Another example, another agent on my team wrote up on a $300,000 house here in Omaha a couple weeks ago. $300,000 house they wrote up on, 25 offers in 48 hours, and they won. But how did they win? They wrote an escalation clause all the way up to 347, okay? They waived all contingencies, which means they waived the appraisal, they waived the inspection, they waived all these other things, they closed when the seller wanted to close, and the house ended up being theirs. And there were 3 other agents that pretty much had the same offer on the table, and they came back to my agent and said, it can be yours for $353 and waive all contingencies. And they did it. Now, some of you might be thinking that's absurd. And right away, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, this is nuts. This is crazy. But that doesn't change the fact that this is reality. This is where we are at in our market and in our industry right now. And that's the truth, and that's the reality. Some of you may be out there saying, that's nuts, I would never do that. Okay, then you're not going to get the house, right? That's the reality. That's the truth. I know you would never do that, and that's probably why you're still searching for a house. The reality is you're going to have to get that aggressive in this type of market if you're going to want a house. And if you don't have an agent that's going to be that aggressive, and I'm not saying you have to go $50,000 over the asking price, okay? Like, every buyer is in a different situation. But I will say this, know your limits. So if you are someone that's going out and you're looking at a house and you know in your mind, I'm not willing to pay more than $300,000 for a house, don't go look at a $300,000 house, okay? Go look at a $250,000 house so that you have the option to go up to $275, $280, $285 if need be, if that's the house that you really want, okay? But if you're putting yourself in a situation where you're gonna go look at a $300,000 house and that's your max, you're never gonna get the house, not in this market. That's the truth, that's the reality. So you need to understand that, okay? And a lot of, I will say parents come along sometimes and they're like, well, there's no way they should pay that. You know, they don't buy a house either without getting an inspection. That's important. I would agree with you. I would not disagree one bit on the fact that I think that it's wise to get an inspection, okay? An inspection is very important. But I will say this, you will never hear me say that I'm telling you not to get an inspection. I will always recommend getting an inspection. But I will also do my fiduciary duty to tell you what it is that's taking place in our market right now. And if you really want this house, you might have to sacrifice a couple things. And unfortunately, the first thing that usually gets taken off that contract and that list is that home inspection contingency. And people waive that. Now, can you get an inspection after you move in? Absolutely, you can get an inspection after you moved in. Are there other things that you could potentially do, like have an inspection for informational purposes, just so that you have the peace of mind? Absolutely. Is someone going to reject your offer if you do that? Possibly. If you have 4 other offers on the table that have waived their inspection, that could be the main reason why they choose not to go with your offer, even if you're willing to go up more, right? It's the peace of mind from the seller to just say, man, we don't even have to worry about that. That's great. This is awesome. They're willing to take the house as is, and we're starting to see a lot more of that. So if someone, let me move into that next point. If someone's got a house for sale that's as is, don't ask for an inspection. There's a reason why they're saying we're selling the house as is. They don't want to make any repairs. They don't want to make any updates. So knowing that as you go in, know that as you go and look at this house, and if there are some things that you think are wrong with it that you can see, that you know would obviously come back on an inspection that you would want to address, don't write up on that house. Save yourself the time and the energy not to do that. But that's again where you have an educated real estate agent that's walking you through that house, pointing some of these things out to you that you can see that you may need to consider maybe fixing up after you move in. But again, it's setting that right expectation, right? Like the market is completely different. Back when our parents bought a house, I'm sure everyone was getting inspections, and that was the thing that like you must get an inspection, you have to do it, and nobody had a problem agreeing to that. It's different in today's market. In today's market, that's the first thing to go. So if you're in a multiple offer situation, don't be asking for an inspection or do it for informational purposes only, because that's going to give you a better chance of getting that house. Again, I want a preference. I'm not saying or advising that I think you shouldn't get an inspection, but it's my job to tell you what I think you should do if you're in a position to where there's multiple offers and you really want the house. It's a recommendation of something that you could do to make your offer stand out above the rest, right? Since I'm on that, let's talk about how you could make your offer stand out above the rest and what to expect if you're in a multiple offer situation, right? Again, our parents probably didn't deal with a whole lot of multiple offer situations, so it's different. But now, this is what we're dealing with. And so what we're seeing is inspections getting waived. We're seeing termite inspections getting waived. We're seeing people bringing more money to the table, whether that's a higher earnest deposit, be presented to show that you have actually the money to go purchase this house and extra money sitting around. We're seeing the appraisals getting waived, or an option is we're seeing someone put a limit or a cap on that, saying, hey, we realize we're going well over the asking price. We're willing to pay up to $5,000, $10,000 difference if the appraisal comes back. Now, let me explain that, because I think some people don't understand this. So when the appraisal's getting waived, let's just go even numbers here. Let's say on a $200,000 house, the house, there's multiple offers and it goes up to $225,000 and they agree to a price at $225,000. Okay, that house needs to appraise for $225,000 or above for that bank to give them a loan. Now, if you have a cash offer, this completely wipes out this entire conversation. Okay, if you have cash, you don't ever need to get an appraisal because you're paying cash. Okay, but if you're doing a loan, there's the appraisal, because that's how the bank will basically confirm that what it is that they're loaning the money for is actually worth that much. Okay, so let's say the appraisal comes back $215,000. What usually happens is the seller then sells that house for $215,000 to the buyer. Now what's happening is that's either getting split between buyer and seller, that $10,000 difference there, right, of $215,000 to $225,000, or the buyer saying, we'll pay that difference, or we'll pay that difference up to a certain amount. So if that was $5,000, then the seller would say, okay, I'll come down $5,000 there because of the $10,000 difference, right? 10 minus 5 is 5. So then it would be $220,000 is the agreed upon purchase price. That buyer would then bring $5,000 extra to the table at closing day to make up that difference. Okay, that's key, because the buyer needs to understand that you're still going to have your closing costs. You're still going to have the down payment that you've agreed to with your lender, and now you're bringing an additional $5,000 to the table in that scenario to pay at closing. So let's say that your closing costs with your down payment and everything was 35, well, that's kind of high, 35,000. I said it, so I'll just use that. It's not going to be typically that high in a lot of cases, but then you would be at 40,000 because you would add 5,000 to that, and 40,000 would be what you need to bring to the table. So where this gets tricky is a lot of first-time home buyers, or a lot of people don't necessarily have that extra money sitting around. They're scrapping up just enough money to go pay for their down payment and their closing costs. So again, that's where you've got to be advised or educated from your real estate agent and lender as far as what you could potentially do when it comes to making an offer in a multiple offer situation. Okay, so now that we're clear on that, the last thing I'll say, and everybody's doing it, is escalation clauses, right? Like if you're not familiar with an escalation clause, it's pretty simple. It's literally, so again, in our scenario, the house is listed for $200,000, but you're willing to go up to $225,000. You would basically write up an escalation clause, is what they call it, that says, hey, we're going to increase our $200,000 offer by $2,000, $3,000, whatever the case is, up to $225,000. So let's say somebody else comes in and they write an offer for $210,000. You'll match that $210,000 offer. You'll pay an additional $2,000, so now you're at $212,000, and that would be an escalation clause going into effect. And if you were the one that went up the highest at $225,000, then you would pay $212,000 in that scenario, and that's what you would get the house for. Now again, everyone's doing this in this market, and so that's another thing to be aware of is you want to try to be strategic in how high you're willing to go and other contingencies you're willing to waive, because obviously if you go up to $250,000 in that scenario, right, and you're only willing to pay a $5,000 difference on the appraisal if it comes back below, there's probably a good chance that appraisal is going to come back well below $250,000, right? So you need to negotiate or talk with your agent to figure out what would be a realistic, competitive, aggressive offer to write if you really want that house. And that's, again, why it's important to have an experienced agent who's been in the business long enough and who's in it daily, right? Because they're in it daily because they can see what they're getting on the listing side of things and offers that are coming in and what people are offering, and also on the buying side where they see what people are writing up for and what they need to write up for to go get that property. Okay, I can't stress this enough, and it drives me insane when we lose out to other people because, oh, it was my mom's best friend, or like my brother's friend just got his license, and I'm like, really? Like, you want to use someone that just got their license, or that's part-time, that's not in it every single day, and has no clue what's actually happening in the market daily? That makes absolutely no sense to me. Again, everybody can use whoever they want, and I never want to force anything, but those thoughts come to my mind as I think about it, where I'm like, why wouldn't you want to use somebody that's doing it on a daily basis? If I'm going to go get knee surgery, do I want to go to a doctor that performs multiple knee surgeries a day, or do I want to go to one that's like, meh, I've done it a couple times? I think I'm going to go to the one that's done it numerous times, right? Like, that would be the wise thing to do. Nothing against the new doctor that has only done 2 or 3, but like, I probably feel a lot more comfortable going to the guy that's done 40,000 of them, right? Like, that's kind of the mentality that I have when it comes to buying one of the biggest assets of your life. Like, you probably should go with someone that knows a little bit about, or is on a team with a team leader that has been in the business long enough to advise them on what to do, right? Like, that's important. So I just want to make that thing very clear. And again, to kind of close this out, because I've been giving a lot of information, but I think it's good that you guys understand a little bit of what's happening, and also understand that like times have changed. Listen, I'll close with this story. My parents bought their house, I think like 8-9 years ago. They bought it for, oh man, I want to say like, I'm not gonna say the price just so I can protect them in that. But my parents bought, they bought this house, not a big house, but enough for them, right? And at the time they bought it and they built. And now looking back 9 years later, they could probably sell that house for $120,000 to $150,000 more than what they paid for it in just 9 years. That's crazy to think about. But why are they willing to do that? Because that's what a seller is willing to pay for their house. I know the neighborhood that they're in, and I know what the prices are that they are selling for. And so like when you mention that to people, sometimes they're like, that's absurd. Like, how in the world? It's what I tell every seller. Listen, you may think your house is worth a certain amount of money, but it's only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. If you're a seller, you're listening to this, please hear that. Your house is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. Okay? So if there's an emotional attachment, if there's other things to it, that's fine. I understand it. I get it. You've lived there for years, or like your kids were growing up in this house, or whatever the case is, and you did a ton of updates. But there's people that can do a ton of updates and outprice themselves in the neighborhood. Okay? There's people that build houses that outprice themselves in the neighborhood, and they're the highest paid house in the neighborhood. They're probably not going to get a return on that if they go to sell that 5-6 years down the road. Now, maybe 15-20 years down the road, yeah. But you have to understand that a buyer is only willing to pay what they're willing to pay for the house and what they think it's worth. That's it. So again, going back to my $300,000 illustration where they went up to $353, like for some people they're like, that's freaking nuts. Yeah, you're right, it is nuts. But guess what? There were 3 other buyers that were willing to go up to $350. That's not nuts. That's crazy. Like that means that seller should be extremely happy because they have done updates to the house. They have lived in a house and taken great care of their house to now sell it for top dollar. And way more than probably what they would have expected to sell it for, because that's what a buyer was willing to pay for it. So I'm just letting you guys know that yes, things have changed. Things change drastically in this industry and in this business on a daily basis. Daily. Like it's daily now where things change. Offers change daily. Adjustments get made in offers daily. Like I can't tell you, I've went and written up like 4 or 5 times with one couple. Guess what? Our offer changes daily. Like the next time we go write up, we're a little bit more aggressive. We're waiving a couple more things. Like those things are constantly changing, right? And so you've got to be willing to change and pivot and understand that this is what we're dealing with. And I say these things to just be transparent and open with you, because a lot of realtors won't. And a lot of people won't tell you not to listen to your parents, or not to listen to the person or the friend that bought a house 6 months ago or a year ago, or whatever the case is, that's like, well, they didn't have to do that. That's great. They didn't have to do that because that's what the market was that day when they bought the house. But guess what? Today's today. And this is what the market is. And this is what people are doing to get a house. So you can trust me as your realtor, right? That's what you've hired me to do. That's where my value comes in at. Or you can continue to listen to all those other people and never get a house. Your choice. It's totally up to you. And you can tell that I'm getting kind of fired up about this, because I do believe in the value that I provide, and I do believe in the knowledge and the experience that I have that brings to the table to everyone if they would just listen. Now, are there times when we're not going to get it and we put forth our best foot and our best offer? Absolutely. Happens all the time. When you're in a 25 multiple offer situation, there's 25 people that want that house, and there's only one house, right? One person out of that 25 is going to get the house. So is there a chance that we're not going to get it? Yes. I mean, if you're getting a loan on the property and you've got 5 cash offers on it, there's probably a good chance we're not going to get it. So it's just stuff to be aware of. So again, I don't say these things to depress you or make you upset or whatever. It should excite you, knowing, especially if you're getting ready to buy and especially if you're getting ready to sell, the importance of using an experienced, knowledgeable agent to help walk you through this process and these multiple offers, and putting you in positions to win as you move forward in this process of buying or selling a home. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope it was encouraging. Again, parents, I love you. I know that you completely are not in this daily and all those types of things. So that's my job as an agent to kind of walk you through this process as well as you're with your kids going in and wanting to be a part of that process. And I know that there's some parents that gift money to their kids, right? And so they are a part of that process. They're a part of that financial process as well. So you deserve to know what it is that you're going to have to do to help make this purchase necessary. And that's why I say that with an open mind. I kind of joke, don't listen to your parents, or your parents are wrong, right? Like, it's not that at all. It's just trying to express and be real and open and honest with you that the market has changed since you purchased a home. And not only since you purchased the home, but since their friends purchased a home, or your other kids purchased a home that may have happened a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. It's all changed, right? I remember this, and I'll close with this. When we finished building our house, and I remember that before we made the decision to build, Vanessa and I were like, we need to wait at least 2 years and save some more money to build, right? So we were kind of in that mindset. And then I started seeing this market kind of start changing, right? And I remember Vanessa and I sitting down and saying, would it be nice to put away some more money? Yes. But if we don't do this, we're going to miss out and we're going to end up paying more. And so we made the decision to build sooner than we wanted to. And I'm so glad we did, because I remember when we finished the build, I remember looking at comps, and I remember looking at what it would cost to build our house if we would have started that day. And it would have been like $35,000 more to build, just because of the labor costs and the material costs. Now, with new construction, like, I can't imagine what that cost would be, because those costs are changing weekly, right? Like, we have conversations with builders all the time where they're like, we've never had to make price adjustments as rapidly and as fast as we've had to do it now, just because of the labor costs and the material costs and the different things that are involved now with the build process. And I'm like, this is nuts. So it's affecting everything, right? But it's, again, using an agent who understands and knows and talks to everything happening in the industry, so that you are well educated, whether you're going to buy a house that's existing or you're going to build a house that's going to be new construction. You want someone that knows what's happening, right? And can advise you what to do and recommend doing certain things that are in your best interest moving forward. So I just say that because, I'm guilty of this as well when it comes to different things too, where I'm like, well, that's not what we paid for that. Like, oh, you're getting ripped off. No, it might just be that something in that current industry, or things have shifted those to change drastically, like they have in our industry, in our business, that make those prices continue to go up and make things have to get waived, like home inspections and appraisals and things like that, in order to get the house. That's just the reality. That's where we're at. Do I hope that changes? Absolutely. I hope that we can get back to some place where it's more of a fair market, where we have the ability to negotiate a little bit more on behalf of the buyer and things, but that's not where we're at right now. And until that changes, and until you hear a new podcast where I can tell you that I'm starting to see that shift change, this is where we are. And I want to be open and honest with you guys as well on that. So with that being said, I've talked way too long. Love you guys. I appreciate you following. Thanks for those of you that have been watching live. I see you. Feel free to comment. If you're watching live and I'm saying things and you've got questions or whatever, comment on there. I'll do my best to address those. But again, thank you guys for watching live. I apologize for it being so long to get you a new updated podcast. I will be more consistent. I promise you that. I'm now back, ready to roll, and ready to keep going here as we move forward. So love you guys. Hope to talk to you guys soon. And we'll go from there.